I'll probably pick podcast, but it's pretty close between podcast and report. So I like to think of both of those as core content. So if you have the core content that's evergreen, by splitting it into clips, stats, creating this sort of micro content from that, then you're able to fill your content calendar for a long time and also evangelize the message. So from the report standpoint, I like that you can have a theory going into it, look at the data, and then if the data does support what you think that it does and your mission as a company, then you're able to beat that drum, share the problem again and again. But then on the podcasting side, you have a similar type of proof, but from more of a colloquial industry expert point of view, so that they still hold that credibility. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening. Here's how I'm dealing with it. And so you pair those things together, all of a sudden you have this quantitative with this qualitative, and you're able to paint this very clear picture of why this is a problem. I give like the slight edge to podcast just because it's video. Video in 2025 is just the most engaging form of content, and it can be harder for reports, something that's very number heavy, maybe to do that. I think it's probably my favorite type of content, the reports for B2B. But the best of both worlds is, and something that we're planning for this upcoming report, doing podcasts and webinars like around the findings in that report. So you're able to have those industry experts starting from that place of here's what the numbers say, let's talk about it. That's like a perfect marriage of those two things. The bigger AI providers starting to get an understanding of what each of them does best. If your company has access to all of those and approval to use any AI tool, it's worthwhile to just test, to just play around with the different ones and understand their strengths. My coworker at Teal, their copywriter there, was really deep into AI, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we be even faster about the ways that we produce case studies and SEO blogs. So that was B2C. So quantity and speed was very important. And so something that was a recurring theme was ChatGPT was better at analyzing data and categorizing. So started that journey here of exploring AI and then finding when to use which program. And so something like Claude we found was actually a little bit more accurate with the transcript, whereas ChatGPT would sometimes just make up quotes. That's something you very much do not want in a transcript. If you're going to have a lot of oversight, this goes back to when do you outsource? Understanding that Claude was better about more accurate summaries and transcripts. So using the different platforms to their strengths after finding out what those strengths are. Something like a podcast fits in that intersection of what I'm talking about in terms of the production side of it, where it's a repeatable motion. So let's say you start something like a podcast or virtual events, even if it's just webinars to start. So you have a cadence, or maybe you have a backlog of these things. You have that going, but then also the production side of it, maybe the editing side of it, you could argue needs maybe a little bit more context than you might think. So let's say I'm like in your shoes right now. You kind of know the context from this podcast, and you might be taking notes or jotting down specific moments in there to help with that editing. So you might say, I liked the answer to this question, and I think we should take those clips. You can send that over to editing and to production. And that seems to me a pretty good use of resources to outsource. But I can see the other side of it as a contractor. Like in the past, I have helped companies who want to just try something. They're not 100% sure that the program might be worth investing in, and it might be worth investing $5,000, $10,000, and maybe a contractor to launch a version of this program as a project, so the one-off. And then if that goes well, let's think about turning it into a program. And it also depends on your in-house resources and interest too. So for me, I like to be able to carve out time for the innovation in-house. If I had to outsource all of the innovation, I think that would be sad for me in a way. I think that is one of the more exciting parts of marketing, is finding that balance of what things make sense to outsource, or is there a balance of I'm going to bring someone else in from the outside to get me up to speed on how to run something like this properly, but then maybe you run with it later